Hey, welcome to Chuguru. My name is Jacob, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different. So on my other channel, Jake's Place, that's not it. 3 years ago, I slapped together this little video and I put it on my other channel, Jake's Place. You should go and check that out it's mostly just reviews and breakdowns of science fiction and that kind of nonsense. There's a few little funny cartoons. Check it out if you got time. So a while ago, I used to have a podcast called True Story Bro, where I would tell stories of interesting occurrences that happened throughout my life, mostly travel related. I used to travel a lot overseas before COVID came along and fucked everything up. So this is just a clip from one of the podcast episodes that I did. It's a short story. It's a bit gross, so if you don't like gross things, then perhaps don't listen to this. There's a bit of swearing. I talk about my dick a lot. I talk about poo. So I hope you enjoy.
True story, bro. Now, this story, unlike the previous, is not nearly as disgusting, but it is also a little disturbing. My friend and I are still on our Chinese adventure. We've been traveling for about 2 weeks and are now currently working our way through the Yongding district in the Fujian province in rural China. For reasons spontaneous, we decided to stay a night in a hakatulu. A tulu is a large, round or rectangular fortified building made from stone and rammed earth. They can be up to 5 stories high and house nearly 800 people. They were mostly constructed during the 12th and more recently the 20th century. These ancient and beautiful structures, not unlike most things in China, are stunning and awe-inspiring, yet most often accompanied by modern-day filth and pestilence, like a magical rose emerging from a pile of festering modern shit. There was a hotel nearby, but for the sake of a unique opportunity, which has now become an interesting memory, we chose to live like the locals, for one night anyway. Many people still live in these ancient constructions and go about their daily business as usual, usually farming, or whatever one does in rural China. Some rooms can be rented out, and we thought it would be swell to spend a night in a massive mud hut. The rooms were small and obviously not very flash, with creaky wooden floors, crumbling mud brick walls, a small window that overlooks the farmland, 2 rickety beds and a dingy orange light bulb suspended from the ceiling that flickered from time to time. The room was, to say the least, rustic. As you can imagine, this tale, like most of mine from China, focuses on the toilet situation. Every floor in the Tulu has several large clay pots filled with what I can only imagine is sewage. We were told, at least we assumed, that this is where people go to piss and shit. We couldn't quite make out what the guy was saying, but it was clearly a pot of shit. I guess they fill them up with water in order to dilute the smell or something along those lines. Either that, or they don't empty them until they are full to the brim. Now that I think about it, how on earth do they empty them? These massive 70 or 100 litre pots would be too heavy to carry down the stairs, perhaps too heavy to even lift up and tip over the edge. Besides, I didn't notice the ground below covered in excrement. I can only assume they scoop out all the waste into a more portable container and transport it to a dumping ground, or sewer/river, somewhere later. I honestly have no idea, and just like so many other fascinating elements in life, I guess I never will. Midnight or thereabout approaches. My friend and I are having a quiet whiskey. He reads the Lonely Planet guide while I attempt to repair a propeller on a remote control helicopter I had bought earlier. I reckon on this trip my friend and I, mostly I, went through roughly 8 toy helicopters. They were cheap and we kept smashing them into things or piloting them into open sewage drains, from which, of course, we're not going to retrieve them. This time I had decided to repair the broken blades instead of buying a new one. The glue I was using was insufferably toxic and the fumes were making me both dizzy and nauseous. So as to protect my face from the fumes, I had a spare t-shirt wrapped around my face. It's worth noting that I wear mostly dark clothes, and as China was nearing winter, I had a long sleeve shirt on and long pants on, therefore completely covered from head to toe in all black. I looked pretty cool. The drinks had settled and my pathetic bladder started crying for relief. It was pee-pee time for Jacob. I headed out to the door and onto the platform, 3 floors up, and I could barely see anything as there were no lights on outside. They probably did not exist at all, and thus the only light was the one emanating dimly from our room. The clay piss pot was several meters from our door, and upon approaching, the smell, despite wearing a mask of sorts, hit me like a punch in the face. It was very dark, but my eyes had adjusted enough for me to see the rim of the abomination. I undid my fly, pulled out Mini-Me, and began to relieve myself. Because I had been fearing the pot of excremental despair, I had denied my bladder satisfaction for quite some time, and thus this pee was not only knee-quiveringly powerful, but lasted for some time as well. I was not nearly halfway drained when footsteps could be heard creaking along the platform, approaching my very location. I squinted and made out the faint silhouette of an elderly woman hobbling along. Not even close to finishing my effusion, I quickly calculated that she would be upon me before I even had the chance to shake, let alone nest and zip up. At only a few feet away from my monstrous discharge, the old woman seemed not to notice the thundering crash of my stream into the pot of liquid horror. For a brief moment, a thought crossed my mind. Perhaps this is a ruse. Surely she could hear the deafening sound of my violent waterfall. Surely she could also see me and thus is here to tell me off. Or perhaps she was approaching for more sinister reasons. With only a foot or so to go before she reaches me, I pinch to cease the sound. I turn to face the elderly lady, who is close enough to touch, and with a goofy grin I say, "Ni hao," which is hello in Mandarin. She is startled, screams, begins to flail her arms, and runs in the opposite direction much faster than someone of her age should be able to, yelling in Chinese the entire way back to her room. What the hell just happened? The noise wakes several other families, and lights from rooms start coming on. People are waking up, and the lady is still yelling. Other voices start to arise, and it dawns on me why she was so freaked out. I am dressed in full black, with a t-shirt wrapped around my head, hiding all but my shifty white eyes. I was a ghost, a shadow in the darkness, a 6-foot ninja in an ancient Chinese fortress, hiding in plain sight in the middle of the night. Pretty cool when you think about it that way, except that I had my penis out, and this poor old, half-asleep villager was probably sneaking out for a midnight piddle, got within kissing distance of a stinky foreigner who proceeded to scare the living shit out of her. I blasted the last of my pee out, zipped up so fast I nearly circumcised myself, and bolted back to my room. I slammed the door, pulled off my head covering, switched off the light, and tried to silence my inner thundering heart. My friend asked about why so many people seemed to be waking up, and I explained the situation. We laughed it off and tried to sleep. The old lady carried on for hours. Not sure if it was the fumes from the glue, the old Chinese woman's blood-curdling screams, still fresh in my mind today, the smell of the Tulu, the constant sound of people hocking up thick wads of phlegm throughout the night, or a combination of it all. But we slept rough that night. Regardless, when the sun rose, us following, no penalty followed the previous night's indiscretion. Also, the glue had dried, and my helicopter was good to go again. Hurrah! Spoiler alert, I crashed into an open sewer later that day. We later found out that most of the people living in the Tulu poop and pee into a container in their room, then empty it into the clay pot outside afterwards. They don't go out there and piss and shit directly into it. Perhaps the old lady was simply emptying a punnet of piss, or perhaps she was merely stretching her weary legs after a hard day's work on the farm. I will never know. All I do know is that my night in a Hakatulu, though not overly enlightening, was at the very least memorable. I have told this story many times, and due to my constant retelling, I will never forget the place from which my shitty story hails. It's interesting, at least to me, that how something as silly as a funny toilet story can help us remember so much more than the incident itself. In my travels, I see so many amazing things, meet so many spectacular people, a lot of which will be forever forgotten. However, when something silly, funny, surreal, or unusual occurs, it helps me remember everything leading up to, involved in, surrounding, or following the event. Till the day I die, I will always remember my time spent in a Hakatulu, thanks to the strange old lady to whom I nearly gave a heart attack. Thanks, old lady.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want me to tell more little funny stories in this sort of fashion, accompanied with pictures from my travel adventures and weird little crappy pixelated cartoons or still images, let me know in the comments. I have many, many stories. Zanti, come here, say goodbye to our friends. Up, Zanti, up, you. So, thanks for watching. See you next time. Don't worry, I'm still going to be doing cooking videos and fishing Can I help you? And fishing adventures. So if you like that, let me know in the comments. I might do some more stories. I've got lots and lots of stories. Most of them are about my penis or poo. But you know what? Well, that's what life is. Life's just a series of penises and poos. See you later. Oh yeah, don't forget to go check out Jake's place. It's fucking sick. If you like science fiction, all that kind of nonsense, then check it out. Okay, see you later.